Hi there, this is Tim with Hack Audio. Today we're going to make some music using the Analog Circuit Factory. Gonna put some drums together, play some bass, acoustic guitar, electric guitar, maybe a vocal if things get a little crazy. And yeah, we just want to show you how we use the plugin in our own workflows, how I use it, and maybe give you an idea about how it might fit into the way that you work. Let's get started. I'm an Ableton user. Let me make myself a little small here. I've just got an 808 here. I've removed any sort of processing that was on it, so this should just be Ableton's native sampler. And let's get started. I'll check back in a little bit. All right, so I've put together a little loop. It's nothing too crazy. Here, let me turn all the processing off. You can just hear it like it sounds from the Ableton files. It's nothing too intricate, just and I do have a little bit of Valhalla room on there, just giving it a little space, but as you can see, it's you know we're barely doing it. I think the send is set at like minus 30 dB. Let's get into it. Here is the processing I added. So that's on now. And off. And on. And we can kind of dig into that. So I separated my different drum tracks into bass drum, snare, rimshot, clap, hi-hats, cymbal, toms, etc. And I really only added processing. I've got a circuit factory on the kick. I've got a circuit factory on the snares and claps and rimshot, and a circuit factory on the hi-hats. So we can go through each of those and just take a look at what's going on. So for the kick drum, if we turn this off, so it's not your boomy 808. It's a little bit clickier, but there's a lot of body there. And what I did, and I tried to level match this, so it should be pretty close. I started off with this tone stack from a bass amp, which is maybe not the most common way to use it, but that's the fun of this plugin, is you can kind of mix and match and put things where they might not supposed to be, but they work just fine. And what we've got here is it just rounds off that click, makes it a little rounder. It is a little bit quieter, so we'll make up for that with this tube in a second, but we can sweep. So we just got that cranked, and we've also the treble cranked. Because I still want, some sort of attack there. I don't want it totally rounded off. We want to give it some presence. And then if we add in the tube, there you go. Just giving it a little bit more weight. And this one doesn't have any knobs. This is the static version of the tube. And so I'm just pushing the input gain and making up for it with the output gain here. If we push a little harder, get a little bit more. All right, let's check out the snare. For the snare, we started with this. And we brought it here. And, it's not night and day, I don't think, but it's different. And the idea here, so I've got a parametric 4-band EQ, which just means that it gives you control over not just the gain, but also the frequency, and some parametrics would even give you control of the Q. We have, or bandwidth, and we have some of those in there. This circuit does not have that, so I'm not using it. And the idea here, let me turn this up a little bit. I think I brought that down to balance it. Is I'm boosting up this bass frequency. We'll just push that a little bit. Oh, that's max. So here's if I sweep the frequency. Yeah, so it's clearly below sort of the fundamental that the snare's using there. For the most part, I got to get that all the way up to the top. And what I wanted to do is boost the very bottom of the snare, and then I'm going to cut just above that. So in a second, I will turn up this mid gain instead of cutting it. And you get that sound. And I don't want that sound. So bring that down. And the reason I'm doing it this way, if you bring the bass gain back down and you start taking that out, it's very thin. So we kind of compensate. It's not, this isn't a Pultec, but it's not dissimilar from the way that the Pultec kind of works. And I don't want that all the way gone either. There we go. And then the treble is just a shelf on this, I believe. And we don't need so much presence, but I wanted it to be a little bit brighter. And the high mids, similar. Just a little bit there. And then what we're doing after that is we're clipping it with a diode, a germanium diode in a soft clipping sort of configuration. And it's just giving it a little bit more meat. We can kind of just balance these. I think I had it pretty... Just sounds thin. It sounds thin now. I mean, let me try and make sure I level match that a little bit better, but that sounds close to me. And then last but not least, we have the hi-hats here. And this is like just a single parametric band. So we've got the frequency and the gain, and it started out like this. And we ended up here. And it's just pushing. It's a little bit brighter. That's really all it is. And I ended up compensating. So the idea here was that I actually wanted a little bit less of the body. So I pulled the output down and pushed the frequency up. People argue about whether you want to cut or boost, and some people will even argue that there's no difference between them. This is just how my brain conceptualizes this. So I boosted the frequency I wanted, and then I took the final output down in order to kind of balance that back out. But here's a sweep of this. So and I think that's about right. No, we can push that a little harder, it looks like. Great. And so, just to get back to this, I have my macro here, and this is with everything on. Let's clear that off. And off. And back on. I like it. Let's see if we can get some bass in here. Maybe I'll plug the P bass in and see if we can get a little bit of groove on. Be right back. Okay, so we've got a bass. It sounds like this. Let me turn off the circuit factory, and I added a little compression here. It's kind of a high ratio, pretty quick attack, pretty quick release, and the bass sounds like this. And then it sounds like this. And you can see those are pretty close level-wise, at least peak. Obviously you got a little bit more compression on this one, plus the compression from the circuit factory. Let's take a look at what it's doing. So we've got a couple stages here. Let's walk through these one by one. So as you can hear, that got very quiet, dramatically quieter. Let me push the output a little bit so you can hear. We have a bass amp. The gain stages are split into stage 1 and 2 with a couple different routes, like A, B, and for the stage 2, I believe it's A through D. Each one has a slightly different profile. There's different components. I believe on this particular amp, you have a couple push buttons that can kind of decide which path, which style you're going to go with. I chose 1A and 2A. And in the middle, I actually grabbed the tone stack from a different bass amp. You can see with the D here, there were a couple different options for that particular one as well. And partly I clicked through till I found one that I liked, but partly we used the tone stack from this bass amp on the kick drum. So I wanted to differentiate that a little bit. And you can see here, I'm driving that hard, trying to get a little bit more grit. And it's subtle. This first stage is subtle. We're pushing that into the tone stack. The tone stack is what it is. We've got a volume, which I have cranked, but it just sounds how it sounds. We can turn it on and off. So you get a little bit more bass, a little less honkiness. Excuse my bass playing. A lot of fret noise in there. Not the cleanest sounds you've ever heard probably, but I think for the purpose of this demo it should be okay. Then we jump to stage 2, which I've cranked the volume here, so. Really trying to get that going. And then the last thing, which I guess was on, my bad. It's not too crazy. I've got a high pass filter set very low. So if we go up here, obviously, that's not the sound you want, but just trying to tighten that up a little bit. And now after playing around with all that, let me see how our gain looks. That seems close enough for what we're doing here. And yeah. Here it is on, off, just gets a little less focused. Let me turn the compressor off, show you. So the compressor is not doing all the work there. We're getting a lot of the sound shaping in the circuit factory, and the compressor is just locking it up a little bit. Because I think we're going to add in some guitars, some piano, a little synth, and fill this out even more. I'll be right back. Okay, let's check out the acoustic guitar. So we've got a little loop here. This is what it sounds like with the circuit factory. And without it. And those are level matched by peak, so not perfect, but check it out. Nothing too crazy. So, to begin with, let's turn. We've just got a 3-band Baxandall EQ, bass, mids, treble. You know it, you love it. And this maybe isn't the typical thing that you would do with an acoustic guitar, but I think a lot of people go for that sparkle and that shine and sort of avoid the like woody kind of mids, but that's what I'm trying to add in here. So we've got the bass cut, the treble cut, and the mids pushed. And then we've got 2 clean tube stages. And we're pushing into those just a little bit. I mean, pretty hard here. But then we can push it a little bit harder if we go. Yeah, I mean, so you can see how you can keep stacking tubes too. You could really blow it out if you wanted to, or we've got a dirty tube as well. I'm trying to do something a little bit more subtle and just kind of bring a little bit of thickness and weight to it. And again, trying to push those mids and have it balance out a little bit. We're adding some organic to the electronic that we have with the 808. And for the purposes of this demo, we're going to be adding in a few more instruments. So also not trying to take up so much space in the mix with this. You can see it fills it out a little bit. And they're about the same level, so that's all the saturation and a little bit of compression from the tubes that's doing that. Okay, let me add in some electric. All right, we're back. I've got 2 electric guitars here for you. They're panned left and right, and I built out a little amp for each of them. And then we grouped it and run the combined track through a tube and a 4-band EQ to do a little bit of extra shaping. So let's turn that off for now. And here's what we've got. So, nothing too crazy, just barely even chords really. And then halfway through we add in a drone note and you get that kind of metallic, clangy resonance sound, which is at the very least interesting. It's texture. So let's walk through how to make an amp. We did a little bit of it with the bass, but for this left channel, I took some liberties and we stuck with the same sort of structure where you have your first gain stage, a tone stack, second gain stage. I did some additional filtering. I'll talk about that in a second. But the whole point, the whole fun part of the Circuit Factory is that you can build your own creations. You can add in your own circuits from schematics if you'd like, but you can also, within the plugin itself, bring parts to amps that didn't exist or don't exist. And so this is hardly the craziest thing you could do, but I added in an additional tube. So now we have our first gain stage into one more tube for a little bit extra saturation and compression. It's still the clean tube, and we're still not driving it so hard, but you're getting a little bit more. And this is like this is the fun of the plugin. The tone stack is just the tone stack that went with the gain stages. So not trying to reinvent the wheel there. But we have so many tone stacks. And do they all sound incredibly unique? No. most guitar amps share some DNA. There's a handful of these different families of tone stacks that people use when they're building amps, um, and they're familiar configurations. It's this bass, mids, treble. Sometimes it's just bass and treble. Sometimes it's just a single tone pot. But they all are tweaked and tuned a little bit differently, and so it's worth checking them out. Let's see what this particular... Let me make sure we've got this soloed. There we go. Just brighten it up, tighten it up. And the fun part with this gain staging is you can decide how hard these things push into each other. So let's turn this down a little bit because it's going to get loud. But what if you want to push this second tube even harder? What if you want to push this last tube from the tone stack? Really dig into it. You can do that too. Really push those mids. Okay, and yeah, so this last filter here, as of this version, which is version 1.0, this is the launch plugin. We do not have a cabinet IR. There's no simulation for the cabinet part of the amp, and that is coming. But for now, I'm having to DIY it a little bit, and we just have a low pass filter, and we're gonna set it. You kind of just play it by ear with this plugin for now as well. There's plans for an analyzer. We're feeling things out. This is in its infancy, and we plan on making changes to give you the best experience you can have. But for now, like with an analog EQ, you just have to play it by ear a little bit, and a speaker generally is going to round off around between 4K and 7K, somewhere in that area, depending on what you've got. And so we don't want it to be this dull. We want to give it a little bit more life. We want to take a little bit off. So let's compare over here. I think it's pretty similar. This one doesn't have the extra tube, but not such a big difference. Let me turn this down a little bit and match those. Okay, so we've got both of these bust, and they're running into one last circuit factory. And let's kind of check that out and see what's going on there. First things, we've got a tube, and then we've got a parametric EQ. And I guess I need to balance that a little bit better. Okay, so one thing we've got going on here, especially with that drone comes in, a little bit clangy, a little bit metallic resonance happening. And that's what this parametric EQ is here for. The tube, we're just trying to get a little bit more cohesion. Just have these things saturate, both guitars saturate together. Push that a little bit more. So you can hear, especially in that second section, the guitars get pretty ringy, and you might like that. Right there, like there's some cool textures in there. There's character, and you might want to bring that out. In this case, I've chosen to get rid of it, and here's how I did that. So the parametric EQ, we did something similar with the snare, where we played with overlapping bands to boost in some places and cut in other places. And the idea is to just find, let's start with the high mids here. I'm going to put this all the way up. And you're going to move the frequency around. And remove a resonance that you don't want. So that's actually not the one that I picked initially. But luckily we have a lot of them here. I think what I was going for, though, is that one. And then same thing here with the low mids. A little bit. And then the whole thing. Yeah, so that's 4 tracks right now, and my guess is this is going to end up being somewhat like, my guess is this is going to end up being somewhere around 25 minutes to a half hour, which I imagine is a little bit longer than most people want to spend on a demo. So we're going to cut this a little bit short. Let us know on the video comments or on the Hack Audio website if you really need to hear that part 2 with some synthesizers, piano, vocals, and I will continue this making a beat process. And yeah, if people are interested, I'll make part 2, and we can flesh this beat out. It will be a whole song by the end of this series. Thanks for sticking with us, and stay tuned for future updates where we're going to be putting out more content showing off the plugin. We have so many ideas and circuits we need to add, models we need to add, and thank you for giving us a chance and checking it out. Hope you've enjoyed the video. Hope you enjoy the plugin. Thanks a lot.